Before the world rushes in and defines your day, there is a sacred hush, a breath of heaven waiting to meet you in the stillness. Not to fix you. Not to grade your performance. But to hold you. Before your phone lights up, before the world tells you who to be and what to fear, you are invited to return. To come home to a deeper truth, that your value was never in your productivity, your beauty, or your strength, but in the God who breathed life into your lungs this morning. This quiet moment, though ordinary in time, is extraordinary in meaning. It's not just the start of your day, it's the center of your soul calling you back. It is not silence for the sake of absence, but space for presence. God is here, not demanding, but welcoming. He is not looking for your schedule, your status, or your strength. He is looking for your yes. So breathe, slow and unafraid. Breathe in mercy. Exhale the lie that you have to carry everything. Let this morning become an altar. Let your breath become a prayer, and before the world gets a word in, let God be the first to speak. You are mine. You are loved. And this moment, this very breath, is worship. Worship doesn't begin when you feel ready. It begins when you show up. It begins not with perfection, but with presence. God isn't looking at your track record this morning. He's not asking how clean your past is or how confident your future feels. He's simply asking, are you here? Will you meet me in the space between what you can't fix and what you can't carry? This is the miracle of worship. It's not reserved for the ones who have it all together. It's extended to the ones who dare to come as they are. To the weary father who feels like he's failing. To the young woman comparing herself to everyone else online. To the single mom juggling invisible battles. To the middle-aged man who feels like his best years are already behind him. To the broken, the uncertain, the overlooked. Worship doesn't wait for your strength. It welcomes your surrender. When God called Moses from the burning bush, he didn't lead with commands. He led with connection. Moses, Moses, he said. And Moses replied, here I am. That moment wasn't about readiness. It was about availability. Moses didn't bring a leadership resume, he brought a willing heart. He was flawed, insecure, and unsure of his next step. And still, God called him. Because God doesn't need your polish. He just needs your presence. So what about you? Maybe you woke up today with doubts hanging heavy. Maybe you feel like you're already behind, like everyone else got a head start on life, purpose, or healing. Maybe you've been trying to earn God's favor, and you're exhausted from pretending. Here's the truth, you don't have to earn a place at His feet. You just have to come. You don't have to bring the right words. Just bring the real ones. Your "here I am" may not feel loud or strong. It may be whispered through tears. It may sound more like a question than a declaration. But heaven doesn't need volume to validate value. Heaven hears the honesty. And God meets it with grace. Say it aloud, even if your voice shakes. Even if you're whispering it between deep breaths. God, I'm here. Not perfect. Not polished. But present. This is what worship looks like in the real world. It's not staged. It's not filtered. It's not performance. It's a tired soul showing up anyway. It's faith that limps but still leans in. It's believing that your presence matters more than your presentation. Today, let your worship begin with that one sacred decision, to be here. Not in the past that haunts you. Not in the future that overwhelms you. But in this moment. With this breath. Saying to the God who already sees it all, I'm not enough on my own. But I believe you are. So here I am. Let that be enough. Because to God, it always is. Surrender is not the end of your fight. It's the start of your freedom. It doesn't mean you've lost. It means you've stopped carrying a burden that was never yours to begin with. Somewhere along the way, we began to equate surrender with weakness, like it's a retreat from courage or a white flag of failure. But in the kingdom of God, surrender is strength. It's not a collapse, it's a return. A return to alignment. A return to trust. A return to the one who never asked you to hold the world together on your own. Jesus didn't say, "Come to me when you've figured it out." He said, "Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." That invitation wasn't conditional. It didn't require perfection. It didn't come with a checklist. It was a call to lay down what's too heavy and take up what's light. When you surrender, you don't lose your identity, you find it. You don't give up your worth, you discover it. The version of you that lives surrendered is more rooted, more rested, more whole. Some of us have been holding on to things for so long, our hands have forgotten how to open. Control feels like survival. Planning feels like safety. But it's not. It's pressure disguised as purpose. And it's exhausting. You weren't designed to hold your future together. You weren't made to be the one who never cracks. Even Jesus, in the garden, surrendered, "Not my will, but yours be done." If the Son of God trusted the Father with the unknown, you can too. Maybe your surrender doesn't look dramatic. Maybe it looks like whispering, "God, I can't do this alone," in the middle of folding laundry or sitting in traffic. Maybe it's deleting the spreadsheet you made to control what only God can guide. Maybe it's unclenching your fists, emotionally or physically, and finally admitting, "This isn't working." That moment is not your failure, it's your freedom. When you stop striving, you make space. Space for peace to settle in. Space for grace to carry what your grit never could. Space for clarity to return. And in that space, you don't just breathe easier, you believe deeper. You remember that God's shoulders are broader, His wisdom greater, and His heart infinitely more invested in your life than you've imagined. So today, dare to release. Dare to trust. Name the thing you've been trying to fix, to figure out, to force, and hand it over. Not because you're giving up on it, but because you're giving it to the only one who can redeem it. Say it aloud if you need to. Write it down and cross it out. Over it, write, "God, I trust you here." This is what alignment feels like, not being in control, but being at peace. You'll still face the day. You'll still show up. But you'll do it with a lighter soul, a freer spirit, and a heart no longer weighed down by things you were never meant to carry. That's not weakness. That's worship. Anxiety has a way of making your world feel smaller. It tightens the space around your chest. It clutters your thoughts with what-ifs and worst-case scenarios. It pulls your eyes inward, trapping you in your own mind. And when the pressure builds, when the silence gets too loud or the pace becomes too fast, your soul can forget that there is something greater than the weight you're carrying. That's where adoration steps in. Not as denial, but as divine redirection. Adoration doesn't erase the hard things, it repositions you within them. It takes your gaze off what's unraveling and places it on the one who never changes. When you adore God, not just thank Him, not just petition Him, but truly magnify Him, you remember. You remember that you're not in control, and that's okay. You remember that you are not alone, and never were. You remember that God is not anxious about what you're anxious about, and in that truth, your soul exhales. Psalm 34 verse 3 invites us to magnify the Lord, not because He needs to be bigger, but because we need to see Him more clearly. Adoration does that. It turns up the volume on God's presence until it drowns out the noise of fear. It stretches your heart wide enough to hold peace again. Not because the headlines disappeared or the bills got paid overnight, but because your soul became anchored in the presence of someone eternal. Worship, at its core, is a shift in focus. Anxiety says, look at everything going wrong. Worship says, look at the one who reigns above it. Anxiety isolates. Worship invites. When you start your morning in adoration, you start from a place of wholeness, not scarcity. You remind your body, mind, and spirit that God is still who He says He is, even when life doesn't feel like it. And something begins to heal inside you, not all at once, but deeply. Consistently. quietly. Try this. Before the world has a chance to speak into your day, let God speak first. Build a 5-minute adoration playlist. Songs that don't ask, but simply adore. Words that lift your chin, not because they fix your circumstance, but because they place your heart in the right posture. Let your first words be songs of awe, not anxiety. Let your first emotion be wonder, not worry. This kind of worship won't always be loud. Sometimes it's one whispered line that cracks through the fear, "You are still good." Sometimes it's staring out the window and realizing the sky has not stopped declaring His glory. Sometimes it's silence, but with a heart wide open to His presence. When you adore God, your world expands again. You remember that you are part of something holy, something secure, something unshakable. And even if nothing outside of you changes today, something within you will. The burden might still be there, but it's not crushing you anymore. You're no longer carrying it alone. So when anxiety knocks today, let adoration answer. When fear tries to narrate your story, let worship rewrite the script. Fix your eyes on the one who never leaves. Magnify Him, not your fear. And let your heart be healed, not by escape, but by encounter. Because in the presence of God, every lie loses its grip, and every anxious heart finds a place to rest. Worship doesn't always sound like a psalm. Sometimes, it sounds like a deep breath in the middle of a chaotic morning. Sometimes it's the sound of the coffee brewing while the house is still quiet, or the hum of the highway as you sit in traffic trying not to lose your peace. It's the clink of dishes in the sink, the shuffle of feet on a tired office floor, the slow exhale as you open yet another email. Worship isn't limited to sanctuaries with stained glass or Sunday mornings dressed in our best. It shows up in the spaces we least expect, because God meets us in the life we're actually living, not just the one we're trying to perfect. We tend to think we need a spiritual atmosphere to offer something holy. But the sacred doesn't wait for silence. It moves into the noise. It inhabits the messy, the repetitive, the overlooked. Colossians 3 verse 17 reminds us, "Whatever you do, in word or deed, do it all in the name of the Lord Jesus." That doesn't just apply to prayer meetings or mission trips. It applies to the mundane. The ordinary moments, when surrendered, become altars. And altars don't have to be beautiful, they have to be intentional. When you wipe down the counters for the 100th time, when you pack your child's lunch or drive them to practice, when you listen instead of interrupt or respond with patience instead of hurry, those are acts of worship. Not because they're glamorous, but because they're done with a heart turned toward God. Every time you choose presence over pressure, you create space for God to dwell. Every small yes is sacred. Maybe you've been waiting for a more spiritual season to engage with God. Maybe you believe that your life is too cluttered, too loud, too practical to be holy. But what if worship was never about the setting, but always about the surrender? What if God's favorite places to meet with you aren't always on a retreat mountaintop, but at your kitchen table, in your inbox, beside the laundry basket? Try it. Choose one part of your routine today and turn it into a worship window. Maybe it's your commute. Turn off the noise and just talk to God like He's riding shotgun. Maybe it's your lunch break. Take 5 minutes and read a psalm, or sit in silence and ask God to speak. Maybe it's the moment you're about to scroll endlessly. Pause and whisper a breath prayer instead. "Lord, I'm here. And I want to see you here." This isn't about doing more. It's about seeing differently. The goal isn't to add pressure to your schedule, but to awaken your awareness that God is already in it, that He's already present in your present. That you don't need to escape your life to encounter Him, you need to invite Him into it. And when you do, everything changes. The dishwasher becomes a sanctuary. The commute becomes a tabernacle. The sighs of exhaustion become incense. Because in the kingdom of God, nothing is too small to carry His glory. So today, look again. Listen again. Worship might be happening already, right in the middle of your ordinary. All you have to do is recognize it and return it to Him. Real worship doesn't come from having the right words. It comes from having a real heart. Not the curated version you post for others to admire, not the composed voice you bring to Sunday mornings, but the version of you that you try to hide. The one that feels uncertain, ashamed, inconsistent, unworthy. That is what God wants. Not because He needs your pain, but because He wants your presence. The truth is, God is not drawn to performance. He is drawn to honesty. That's where worship begins. Psalm 51 verse 17 says, "A broken and contrite heart, O God, you will not despise." That means you don't have to earn your way into His presence. You don't have to audition for acceptance. You just have to come as you are. There's something sacred about letting go of the script. About falling apart in front of the one who already knows what's coming undone inside of you. You don't need to polish what God already sees. You don't need to pretend you're fine when your heart is anything but. He won't pull away from your mess. He leans into it with mercy. Some days, worship looks like singing boldly. Other days, it looks like whispering through tears, "God, I'm still here." And that's enough. That whisper shakes heaven. Not because it's loud, but because it's honest. Because it comes from a place so raw, so surrendered, that nothing stands between your heart and His. That is the sound of real worship, unfiltered, vulnerable, and sacred. You are not a project to God. He's not waiting for you to fix yourself before He loves you fully. You are already known. Already chosen. Already held. And when you stop trying to perform, you start to experience the kind of relationship your soul was made for. It's not built on perfection. It's built on presence. It's built on showing up, again and again, not with answers but with authenticity. So if there's a part of you you've been hiding, something buried in shame or fear, bring it into the light. Not because it's perfect, but because it's real. And God honors the real. Finish this sentence in prayer today: God, the part of me I've been hiding is. Let that line open a conversation with the one who already knows and still invites you closer. Worship doesn't require a platform. It doesn't need a microphone or a melody. It needs truth. Your truth. Spoken, whispered, written, or wept. When you give God the unedited version of your soul, you're offering something far more powerful than performance. You're offering trust. And trust is the language heaven responds to. There is safety in His presence. There is room to fall apart and still be loved. There is space to say, "I'm not okay today," and still be held. That's the kind of worship that transforms. Not because your words are perfect, but because your heart is honest. And when honesty meets holiness, healing begins. So today, worship from that place. Not the place of polished faith or scripted prayers, but from the place where you're still wrestling, still wondering, still waiting. That is holy ground. That is the altar God is after. And that is more than enough. Worship is not the end of the story. It's the beginning of your mission. It may start in silence, in stillness, in surrender, but it doesn't stay there. True worship doesn't just fill you with comfort. It equips you with courage. It doesn't just soothe your wounds. It awakens your calling. You weren't made to simply feel better in God's presence. You were made to be transformed by it, and then to carry that transformation into a world that's desperate for it. In Isaiah 6 verse 8, after being undone by the holiness of God and cleansed by His mercy, Isaiah hears the Lord ask, "Whom shall I send, and who will go for us?" Isaiah doesn't respond with qualifications. He doesn't offer a strategy or a resume. He offers availability. He says, "Here I am. Send me." And that moment becomes a turning point, not because Isaiah had all the answers, but because he was willing to carry the encounter he just had into the lives of others. The same is true for you. You are not filled just for the sake of feeling full. You are filled so you can pour out. God meets you in worship, not just to comfort you, but to commission you. To remind you that your ordinary life holds an extraordinary purpose. That every interaction, every conversation, every small act of kindness can carry the weight of heaven if done in His name. You were never meant to leave His presence empty-handed. You are sent out with light, with love, with authority. Maybe today, that mission looks small. Maybe it's sending a text to someone you've been meaning to encourage. Maybe it's praying for a coworker you find hard to love. Maybe it's choosing compassion over sarcasm, gentleness over frustration. These aren't distractions from your purpose. They are your purpose. God doesn't just use platforms. He uses people. People are willing to be interrupted. People are willing to respond. You might not feel ready. You might still be healing, still questioning, still learning. But worship doesn't wait for perfection. It launches from a posture of yes. You've already encountered the love that heals. Now you carry it into a world still aching. Don't let this moment of intimacy stay private. Let it become public through how you love, how you listen, and how you live. The presence of God never leaves you the same. And if it truly touches your heart, it will ripple outward. Into your relationships. Into your work. Into your city. Into the unseen places that only you are called to enter. That's the power of worship. It doesn't just stay on your lips. It moves through your life. So today, ask God with a willing heart, who do you want to bless through me? Then pay attention to the promptings. The name that comes to mind, the need you keep noticing. The ache you feel called to respond to. This is how worship walks out of the room, with open eyes and ready hands. You are not leaving this moment empty. You are leaving it empowered. You are not just someone who encountered God. You are someone He now chooses to send. And that is holy. That is weighty. That is worship. Lord, here I am. Not to impress you, not to prove myself, and not to pretend I have it all together. I'm not coming with polished prayers or perfect plans. I come with my whole heart, the real one, the one that's tired, sometimes uncertain, often stretched thin. I come with what I have, and I lay it at your feet. The questions, the dreams, the pieces of myself I've tried to hold together with my own strength. I bring them all to you. I release the roles I've tried to maintain. The pressure to perform. The deadlines I chase often pull me away from your peace. I lay down my titles, my timelines, my need to be seen, and instead, I choose to be known. Known by you. Loved by you. Held by you. That is enough for me today. That is where I find rest. I offer you my ordinary, Lord. My routines, my responsibilities, the spaces in my day that feel too small to matter. But I believe nothing is wasted in your hands. So I give you the morning rush and the evening quiet. The messy middle. The unseen moments. The things no one applauds, but you still notice. Let them all become worship. Let them rise as a fragrance of surrender from a heart that simply wants to be with you. May every breath I take today be a reminder that you are near. May every task, no matter how small, be an opportunity to say, I'm doing this with you, God. And when the pressure builds or the world tries to pull my focus away, bring me back to this still place. The place where I remember who I am and whose I am. Shape my inner world, Lord, before I step into the outer one. Make my thoughts worship, my speech an offering, my actions a reflection of your grace. Let my obedience not come from obligation, but from love, from knowing I am fully seen and fully embraced. I may not feel ready for what today holds. But you are already in it. You go before me. You walk beside me. You live within me. So I choose to move forward, not in fear, but in faith. Not in striving, but in surrender. Not in self-reliance, but in the quiet confidence that you are enough, and because of that, I am held. Here I am, God. Still, soft, surrendered. Use me. Speak through me. Love through me. Let every yes I offer today be soaked in your spirit. Let every no I need to say be covered in wisdom. Let every silence I keep be filled with your presence. I don't want to just sing songs of worship. I want my whole life to become one. A steady, imperfect, wholehearted cry that rises from the depths of my soul. You are worthy. I am yours. Here I am to worship. At the heart of this devotional journey is a soul learning to live from presence, not pressure. The character is not a spiritual giant or a polished performer, but a person who wakes up in the tension of everyday life, pulled between responsibilities and restlessness, longing for purpose yet haunted by insecurity. And still, they choose to show up. In the quiet of the morning, before the world names them, they bring their real, messy, beautiful self to God. Not with strength, but with surrender. Not with answers, but with adoration. Through every section, this person moves from self-reliance to spiritual realignment. They discover that worship isn't reserved for sanctuaries. It's found in traffic jams and laundry piles, whispered through weary prayers and breathed between bites of a rushed lunch. They learn that honesty is not weakness and that vulnerability is the soil where intimacy grows. They're reminded that God's presence doesn't just comfort, it commissions. And when they finally say, "Here I am," it's not a moment of perfection. It's a declaration of availability. The invitation in this story is for all of us. You don't need to be impressive to be impactful. God isn't looking for polished prayers. He's looking for a willing heart. In your own life, try turning down the noise and entering the morning with stillness. Let worship rise in unexpected places. Let surrender lead your schedule. And most of all, don't just visit the presence of God, carry it. Because worship doesn't end when you leave your prayer room. That's where it begins.